And it is deeply shocking. As I say, I think it's really wrong for all the young people in our country who actually become solicitors, who actually achieve things, because they must just be absolutely toe curling at this government. I mean, taking away winter fuel allowance is not something I ever thought a Labour government would do.
No.
This government must. I mean, actually, my deepest sympathy is with long-term Labour supporters. You know, integrity. Well, that's all gone now. Clearly, he has shysters in office with him.
Yes.
The Reynolds solicitor scandal isn't just another political mishap. It's potentially criminal deception at the highest levels of Labour leadership. Jonathan Reynolds falsely claimed to be a qualified solicitor, which violates the Solicitors Act of 1974. What's even more shocking is Starmer's deafening silence. The former Director of Public Prosecutions surely understands the legal severity here, yet he's protecting Reynolds instead of upholding the law. Is this the integrity Starmer promised when he took control of Labour? Before we move on, I'd like to ask you a small favour. If you appreciate this content, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch the videos without subscribing. It costs you nothing, but it makes a huge difference to us. So, did you click the subscribe button? Great, thank you so much. Now back to the video. Let's get straight to the heart of the scandal that's rocking Westminster. Jonathan Reynolds didn't just embellish his CV or exaggerate a role. He stood up in the House of Commons shortly after being elected as an MP and explicitly claimed to be a solicitor.
Yes, it does. And to come into office with all these highfalutin claims about restoring dignity and honour and... No, and I've lived through Labour governments before, and you can have perfectly stable and good Labour governments. I mean, it's something I thought a mad Conservative government might consider.
Well, I mean, we can go back, because we do this on a regular basis. We can always find a clip of Kier Starmer.
This wasn't a slip of the tongue or an ambiguous statement. Reynolds boldly presented himself as a qualified legal professional, when in reality, he merely trained as one, but never completed the qualification process. This deception goes far beyond the typical political spin we've grown accustomed to. Legal experts have made it abundantly clear that falsely claiming to be a solicitor constitutes a serious crime in the UK. One solicitor has pointed out that impersonating a solicitor is a primary breach of both the Solicitors Act of 1974 and the Legal Services Act of 2007. This isn't just political mischief. It's potentially criminal misconduct that would end careers in virtually any other profession.
But not taken seriously, and Jonathan Reynolds is obviously a wrong 'un.
Yeah.
And it is deeply shocking. As I say, I think it's really wrong for all the young people in our country who actually become solicitors, who actually achieve things. You know, integrity. Well, that's all gone now. Clearly, he has shysters in office with him.
Yes.
The gravity of Reynolds' false claims has now prompted the Solicitors Regulation Authority to reopen its investigation into the matter. The SRA doesn't take such infractions lightly, and the potential consequences could be severe. As one legal expert put it, this is much worse than exaggerating your role at the Bank of England, because it's a proper, professional qualification protected by law. What makes this situation particularly damning is Kier Starmer's deafening silence on the matter. As a former Director of Public Prosecutions, Starmer absolutely understands the legal implications of Reynolds' deception. His background in law makes his failure to address this scandal all the more troubling. Is he hoping this will simply blow over? Or perhaps he's been aware of Reynolds' misrepresentation all along. The timing couldn't be worse for Labour. This bombshell has detonated precisely when the party has been promising voters a new era of integrity and transparency. Instead, we're witnessing what appears to be a pattern of credential inflation throughout Starmer's inner circle. First Rachel Reeves with her economist claims, and now Reynolds with a potentially criminal misrepresentation of his qualifications. What's truly baffling isn't just the Reynolds scandal itself, but Starmer's calculated silence in its wake. For a former Director of Public Prosecutions, who built his entire political brand on transparency and accountability, his sudden allergy to facing difficult questions reveals something far more troubling than mere political awkwardness. This isn't an isolated incident. It's a symptom of a fundamental leadership crisis. Remember those lofty promises that swept Starmer into power? His campaign pledged a new era of integrity, explicitly stating he would be different from previous administrations. Yet as the Reynolds scandal unfolds, we're witnessing not principled leadership, but a man desperately hoping the storm will pass without him having to take a stand. His refusal to engage directly with questions about Reynolds suggests either cowardice or complicity, neither option being particularly flattering for a man who once prosecuted criminals for a living. Behind closed doors, the panic is spreading. Labour allies are now quietly distancing themselves from Starmer.
I don't think there's been a government, certainly in my living memory, which has been so out of touch with the thoughts and the feelings of the public.
And he appointed them. So he's decided to be amongst shysters because they must just be absolutely toe-curling at this government. I mean, taking away winter fuel allowance is not something I ever thought a Labour government would do.
No.
A telling sign that the party's internal confidence is crumbling. The public facade of unity barely masks the growing whispers of discontent among party members who fear that Starmer's handling of this crisis could permanently damage public trust. When your own team starts backing away, you know you're in trouble. This avoidance of accountability isn't just disappointing, it's revealing. Starmer's response to the Reynolds situation demonstrates a leadership style that prioritises self-preservation over principled action. Rather than addressing the issue head-on, he's opted for silence and evasion, leaving his party vulnerable and raising serious questions about his judgment in appointing Reynolds in the first place. Did no one in Starmer's team bother to verify Reynolds' credentials? Or worse, did they know and simply not care? Meanwhile, ordinary citizens will ultimately pay the price for this leadership vacuum. Starmer's administration is reportedly planning tax hikes that directly contradict his earlier pledge not to raise taxes on working people, with pensioners particularly vulnerable to these new financial burdens.
So it must reflect on him. There's no way that the Prime Minister can avoid all of this. And he has picked these people to be in his cabinet with him.
Yeah.
This government must... I mean, actually, my deepest sympathy is with long-term Labour supporters.
What was promised as a fair and just future is instead shaping up to be another system that punishes the very people it was meant to protect. The fallout from this scandal represents more than just a momentary embarrassment for Starmer. History has repeatedly shown that political figures facing severe integrity challenges rarely recover their former standing. We've witnessed similar scandals lead to dramatic resignations and plummeting public support across the political spectrum. Starmer now walks this same precarious path. What makes this situation particularly volatile is the ongoing SRA investigation into Reynolds. Its findings could devastate not just Reynolds personally, but potentially trigger a catastrophic chain reaction throughout Labour's leadership structure. Every day this investigation continues, public trust erodes further. The cruel irony for Starmer is that his entire political brand was built on integrity and competence, the very qualities now being questioned. The British public, already cynical about politicians, will find it difficult to reconcile Starmer's lofty promises with the troubling reality emerging before their eyes. This scandal has stripped away the carefully constructed veneer, revealing something far less impressive underneath.